And here we go with another video on the subject of enmeshment, specifically when you feel guilty for leaving a system of enmeshment. Oh, how we love enmeshment. Just kidding, no we don't. Enmeshment is a very unhealthy and dysfunctional system. For those that don't know what enmeshment is, it's basically a dynamic, usually in a family, like a group of people, where boundaries are diffused. There really is no sense of individuality. Everyone's shit is everyone's shit. Oftentimes people actually don't get to, like, discover their own sense of uniqueness and individuality because they're sucked into a fucking glob, right? If you were to take my fingers, right, and cut them off and look at them as individual members of a family, that'd be a different story. But enmeshment is when everyone is basically a fucking unit. They're all one, right? And it's fascinating, too, because none of this is good or bad or right or wrong, but it is unhealthy, right? Because it lacks healthy boundaries, right? People are kind of expected to be a part of everything with everyone, even if they don't want to, even when they don't want to. And that just sucks, right? And so let's talk about feeling guilty when moving away from a system of enmeshment. And again, I hope that I cleared up the definition of enmeshment. And just to reference, because I think it's important, there is a man, was a man, named Salvador Minuchin. He wrote at least one book, and I started reading it. I did not finish reading it yet, but it's called Psychosomatic Families. From what I understand and learned, he was the person that coined the term enmeshment. And I understand that whenever somebody is involved in enmeshment, they are also a participant of it, of course, right? And then when you, wake up from the dynamic and realize, what you've been participating in, you might be like, oh, diffused boundaries. I didn't get to have my own space, my own boundary, right? People could basically fit their entire fucking bodies inside of... I'm trying to make this as graphic and representational as possible to just put things into perspective to help people understand just how fucked up and dysfunctional and unhealthy enmeshment is, because it is, right? And a lot of people that were raised in systems of enmeshment, they associate that with intimacy. And the other fascinating thing too is, and I've been learning a lot about this, the pain that a lot of people feel in relationships, they think it is love, right? They associate it with love. They identify it as love. And so therefore then they think, man, love fucking hurts. It doesn't, though, because what they think is love is actually enmeshment. And enmeshment is not love, and love does not hurt. From what I've learned from healthy individuals, at least one, love is glorious and it's incredible, right? Enmeshment is painful. Why? Because you feel guilty, you feel obligated, you feel, shamed, you feel all these different things that are part of an unhealthy and dysfunctional system, right? There is a loss of self, a loss of sense of self, because you're enmeshed with a system that does not see individuals. Instead, it just sees one fucking glob of a unit, which is every single family member, or every single member of any group, right, that is enmeshed. And so that's really taken me some time to just kind of, unlearn, oh, wow, love is not painful. Enmeshment is painful. And it is. It is. Having your boundaries violated is a very painful experience. Having your boundaries not considered, thinking that you can't communicate your boundaries, thinking that you can't communicate your needs, not even realizing that you have needs, right? That's actually a very real thing for many people, and even something that I've been looking at lately, not feeling like you have needs. Well, because if you're raised in a system of enmeshment where individuality is not encouraged, you're not really going to get enough time to yourself to really even understand who you are and develop that. And that actually has a lot to do with the video that I made yesterday. But let's kind of like walk through feeling guilty walking away from, or, you know, just leaving a system of enmeshment. It's a very fascinating experience. Something that I've learned is that, and not everyone, you know, but some people are not aware of their fucked upness. If they're not aware of their fucked upness, it's not likely that they're going to change, right? And if you lead a person to a mirror and you're like, look into it, it's all right there, right? It's written on their fucking face. Do you see it now? They still might not. Or they might fucking see it and then deny it because it's too painful to look at, right? Yeah, one of the biggest elements here I actually think is, I mean, I'll touch base on a few other things, but one of the biggest elements here I think is a person's incapacity or inability to see for what it is their own fucked upness, right? And that's a challenging thing too, because like, I mean, I have felt bad for people because it's like they're unaware of how fucked up they are. And it's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's just unhealthy. It's a dynamic of unhealth that only creates and attracts more of the same thing, right? If what you're familiar with is a dynamic of enmeshment where you don't get to have healthy boundaries and everyone else has to be invested in your shit, you're going to learn that that's how relationships work, right? And by the way, I've seen this before, what I'm about to say. When your relationship is like, I'm actually, I'm gonna kind of like step out on a limb here and try something. I understand that this might come with some kind of like different feedback or like criticism or anything, but there's been something that I've been thinking about for a while that I kind of just want to paint as graphically as fucking possible. I'm going to utilize a metaphor, and I'm going to compare it to relationships that have either no healthy boundaries or just no boundaries at all, right? Because there's a lot of them out there. In porn, specifically a film, right, people's body parts are exposed, right? And this is kind of hard to explore. Relationships that don't have healthy boundaries or don't have boundaries at all are kind of naked like that, with just on display intimacy or even lack thereof, with just like people outside of it fucking violating the space. And I'm not here to discuss porn at all. I'm not getting into that at all. But I'm just utilizing it as a metaphor because like healthy relationships consist of and require boundaries, right? When they don't have that, people that should not be involved because it's none of their fucking business get involved, right? And so different parts of people's lives are being exposed. Just how, like, you know, like when it comes to porn, different body parts are exposed, right? And for the people involved in the relationship, it can be an exceedingly uncomfortable experience, right? And that oftentimes happens in enmeshment because, or in systems of enmeshment because, you know, it's just like a person's relationship is basically like a fucking science project on display, right? And it's fucking naked. And there's nothing wrong with nudity, nothing at all. It's not a matter of good or bad or right or wrong. I'm not getting into that. But it's just fucking naked. And it's there for everyone to be like, oh, let me, just, let me touch, let me try, no. Fucking no. you know, and it's underdeveloped, it's immature, it's really unhealthy. For lack of a better fucking word, I mean, I'm just gonna be full honest. It's fucking disgusting. It really is. Not even a fucking curtain to kind of like close things off and be like, no, you guys stay the fuck away. Like, this is between me and this other person, or this is just entirely me, right? And I wanted to bring that metaphor into this to really paint that as best as I can, because I think it's important. I might make a second video on this because there's a lot to say, but you can't save people. You really can't. The only person that has any, or the only people that have any kind of like potential power in that are like actual licensed professionals, therapists and everything. But other than that, you really can't do anything about it, right? So feeling guilty, understandable, of course, but it's like, all right, well, do the best that you can for yourself, because you're trying to put out a fire that just continues to burn and burn and burn.